Okay. Today, I need everybody to be prepared to take notes. I'm going to give you some really, really important information today, and the only place that you're going to get it is in this lecture. So if you weren't prepared to take notes prior to this, go ahead and get ready. Okay, awesome. Now, today, we're going to jump in with both feet. We've kind of gotten off to a slow start this semester. First day I went in there, we were really kind of taking it easy. My first day with you on Tuesday. But today we jump in with both feet. And from here on out, we're going to move pretty quickly and we're going to cover a lot of area. We're going to learn a lot of things about a lot of things. So remember, 50,000 foot level. So we're going to hit some really important points. What I'm going to start teaching you about today is the entrepreneurial toolbox. Now, I told you this class is going to be about developing an entrepreneurial mindset. And what that means is like you're walking around with all these tools that help you, your entrepreneurial toolkit, and you know when and where to pull out each one of those tools and use them most effectively. No different than sitting at your house and you got a toolbox at your house and something like you want to hang a picture. Well, then you know what to go get out of the toolbox to hang the picture. Maybe you're going to get like a level or a measuring tape to make sure it's straight, a hammer maybe to put a nail in the wall or however it is that you do it. But you're not going to go to that toolbox and pull out a saw. Anybody, we don't need a saw to hang a picture, do we? No. So think about the things that we're going to learn in this class as that. I'm going to be giving you tools to put into your toolbox. You won't use all of the tools all the time, but it is beneficial for you to know which tools to use when. And obviously, the more tools that you have, the more prepared you'll be. So that's what we're going to do. You can use this entrepreneurial toolkit to start a business, and we will talk about it in that context in this class. But you can also use this entrepreneurial toolkit in any aspect of your life to help you be more successful. So that being said, we're going to jump right in, okay? Now, before we do, I'm going to tell you, I taught Nick Saban everything he knows. I really did. Not really. But I can tell you this. I've been teaching this toolkit for many, many years, since before Nick Saban came to town. And since he's been here, it has been a ton of fun for me to watch him coach because I know what he's doing. He's using the tools in the toolkit, the tools I'm going to teach you, and he's using them really, really well. What he's doing is not rocket science. It's really not. He's using the same tools anybody out there can obtain. He's just using them really well, and he's continually evaluating which tool he needs and which one would be the best. And he's very disciplined about using them. His discipline is what really differentiates him from everybody else. So I want you all to keep this in mind as we're talking about all this, and I'll use him as an example to help you guys understand how we can use this in the entrepreneurial world. You can use it as a football coach. But I'm telling you now, guys, what he does is not rocket science. Y'all ready to learn the process? Cool. Now you're going to need to take a lot of notes. But before we do this, I want to start with a story to tell you how the information I'm going to share with you today changed my life. So let's just sit back and I'm going to tell you a story real quick. Everybody in life is dealt cards, right? We've all got our hand of cards. There's nothing we can do about the cards we're dealt. What we need to do is learn how to take those cards, recognize what they are, and then learn the best way to play them, right? Well, I've gotten pretty good at understanding what cards are in my hand. And I was lucky in that one of the cards I was dealt is that school's easy for me. I was one of those students that most people hate. Like I really didn't have to study to do well. It just kind of like, I love learning and it was all really pretty easy for me. So I skated through school, through my undergrad. And like I said, other than busy work and just making sure I stayed caught up, school was pretty easy for me. Now, I know that you all understand that. I mean, everybody's dealt different cards. So some people are dealt cards that make them natural athletes. We all know those people who can go out on the field, whatever it is, give them a sport, and they're good at it immediately when they try it, right? They're just natural athletes. They have talent. And then there are other people who are like me who really enjoys playing sport, but I'm not a natural athlete. Like I have to really practice. Me really practicing to develop muscle memory so that I can be okay at playing tennis is really no different than the person who has to study more than me to do better on the test, right? So I want you guys to all understand that concept. So mine was I've always been really good at school. Now, that's a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing because like I love to learn and it was easy to get the grades, but it's a bad thing because I was never challenged in school. So I never learned how to really dig in and have to work really hard to get my grades. I just became accustomed to it all coming easy. And that was all fine and well until I started working on my PhD. And when I walked into my first PhD seminar and sat down, I was surrounded by unbelievably smart people from all around the world. People from Turkey, from China, all sitting in this class with me, and they were brilliant. And all of a sudden, I wasn't the smartest person in the room anymore. And in this seminar, they started talking about information and processing it in a way that I had never done and that did not come easy for me. You can imagine my reaction. I freaked out, unbelievably freaked out, super high anxiety, left there questioning myself like, oh my God, I don't belong here. I am not smart enough. I could feel my body shrink. You ever been in that situation where you're feeling really good about yourself and then something happens and you feel yourself go, ooh, and you feel your body shrink? And you're in that like, oh my God, and your self-esteem just goes down the tubes. And you walk away doubting yourself. You walk away, or I walked away doubting myself. I walked away thinking, I don't belong. I do not belong here, so I don't need to stay. I was not confident at all in my abilities. I mean, it was just really like a very scary time for me. And I'm sure all of you can think of a time where something like that has happened for you. I mean, I've found myself in situations where I'm like, oh my gosh, I just don't fit in or I don't belong. And my confidence goes, whew. Well, that's where I was. And so I was faced with, okay, well, what do I do? And so I went back and I just kept going back to class and I was doing my best, but still I was really still in a bad place with a really high level of anxiety. Until I walked into class one day and the professor told us about this theory. And this theory changed my life. And I've heard from millions and millions of students, when I tell you about it, it changed theirs too. So we're going to start talking about it today, and it is going to be the basis of the philosophy for teaching entrepreneurship, and it is the first tool that you need to put into your entrepreneurial toolkit. Everybody ready? Good. You need to know about, and I'm going to share screen with you. Before I do, let me tell you guys, this digital whiteboard that I have, I do my best on it. It is not the same thing as a whiteboard at school. So y'all laugh with me if I screw this up, okay? Can everybody see the whiteboard now? Everybody good? Okay. I can't write on it. It's like I am a kindergartner trying to learn how to write and draw again, but I do my best. So y'all just bear with me. Okay, I want to teach you today about the theory of bounded rationale. It is a very complex theory. So if you go Google it, you're going to be like, whoa, there's a lot of parts to this. I'm not going to teach you all of it. I'm going to pull out a couple of the important parts of it that really apply to the tool that you need to put into your toolkit. Okay. Now, it's easier for me to explain this to you if I draw a picture. This is what the theory of bounded rationale says. This is me. This is you. We are that person. And we draw a big circle around us. And the theory of bounded rationale says that everything we know is inside this circle. Everything. And everything we know is based on two things. It's based on our experiences, and it's based on time. So by experiences, this can cover a whole lot of things. Maybe your experiences are where your culture, where you're from. We probably have people in here who are from a different country. If that's the case, when you were growing up, then your experiences are going to be different than people who grew up in the United States. Maybe you grew up in the northern part of the United States. If you did, then your experiences are going to be different than people who grew up in the South. I grew up in a super small town in Alabama. My experiences are going to be different than someone who grew up in Birmingham, even though we're both from Alabama. So you can see how in here, based on experiences, we would have different knowledge based upon our different experiences. Experiences can also include things like your education and school. We all went to different high schools. And because of that, we all learned different things. Maybe it's your religion, if you have one. We all have different religions, maybe different denominations. We've all been exposed to different knowledge. And so that means that everyone's knowledge inside their circle is different. Now, because it's all based on experiences here, what this means is that no two people have exactly the same knowledge in this world. There are no two people in this world who have had exactly the same experiences throughout their life. Nobody. Not at all. Now, everybody understand the part of experiences and how that shapes what we know? Good. The other function is time. And this is really something completely out of our control. We cannot control how long we've been alive. Can we? No. And what it tells us is that the longer we live, the more time we're here, then the larger our circle should become, the more we should know. And the reason it should is because over time we will have had more experiences, right? So it is a function of time and it is a function of experiences. Now this helps us to explain things like some of the things we hate, like when your parents say, you're not old enough to understand. Didn't you hate it when they told you that? Okay, the truth is they were probably right. Maybe not, but probably. And the reason for that is because as a function of time, they would know things you didn't know. And that's not your fault. Not at all. I mean, think about yourself now and think about yourself when you were 16. When you were 16, didn't you think you knew everything? I mean, seriously. Now you look back at yourself at 16 and you laugh and you're like, oh my gosh, I was so stupid. I thought I knew everything. I really didn't know anything. Okay, well, that never goes away in your life. You'll turn 30 and you'll look back and say, oh my God, y'all remember when I was 21 and I thought I knew everything? Well, now, whew, that never goes away, hopefully. This also helps us to explain why people say you get wiser as you get older. What they're really telling you is that the circle here that's your circle of knowledge, it gets bigger as you get older. So yes, you should get wiser as you get older. This means we have a lot to learn from people who are older than us. And the more that we can listen to them and include what they have to teach us in our experiences, then the better our knowledge will be inside our circle. Everybody understanding so far? Okay. Now, our goal in life should be to try to constantly expand our circle and expand our knowledge through exposing ourselves to more experiences. We should be trying to do this. And you guys are doing this right now. You're doing this because you're in college. You're exposing yourself to more knowledge in your classes. And what I hope you're doing is putting it all inside your circle. It might not be information that you use right now or that you even understand why you're learning it, but please put it inside that filing cabinet that is your head, so that when you do get to a point in time that you need to know that, then you can go back to that file and pull it out. Everybody with me? Any questions? Okay, good. Now, the theory of bounded rationale is a theory about how we make decisions. And what it says is that we make, at any given moment, we make the best decision we can based on the knowledge that's inside our circle. We do. As long as we take everything into account, we do our best. But we do that now with an understanding of, I'm making the best decision I can based on what I know. But we also realize that there's a whole lot of stuff out here that we don't know. But we just do our best. This is one of those things where if we make a decision today, and then tomorrow we wake up and regret it, what that means is that your circle expanded because of time and because of the experience associated with making that decision. And you look back on it and you can say, oh my goodness, that was not a good decision. Or maybe you look back on it and you say, that was a great decision. This is why we have the other little cliche statement, hindsight is 20/20. What that means is you expanded your circle and now you can look back because now you have knowledge you didn't know. And you can look back at that decision and evaluate it differently. Now, this is all kind of common sense stuff that everybody probably, you're like, okay, well, that's not like earth shattering. It's not, but very few people think about our lives that way. And the way that I know that very few people think about their lives that way is because it's something that was like prevalent in my life. And that was that I was really scared within certain circles to say, I don't know. Any of you ever found yourself like feeling stupid if someone asked you a question and you had to say, I don't know? And you're like, oh my God, if they asked me that, then I should have known. Well, that was where I was. But once I learned this theory, this is why it changed my life completely. Because now, all of a sudden, I knew that it was okay for me to say, I don't know. It gave me a ton of confidence now. So there I sat in that PhD seminar with all of these people, and they could answer a question I couldn't answer. It did not mean for a second that anyone in that room was smarter than me. It just meant that they had experienced something that I had not experienced yet. So I was able to look at them and say, oh my gosh, you do know? That's really cool. Like, tell me about it now, because I want to know too. And when you free yourself up from always trying to prove yourself or always trying to know everything, and when you give yourself the confidence to say, I don't know, that increases your level of confidence exponentially. Now, this applies in whatever you're doing. For me, this was one of those, you guys ever seen the movie Inside Out, where it talks about a core memory? If you haven't seen that movie, I know it's a cartoon, but it is fantastic. So this is one of my core memories. This really shaped me and made me into the confident entrepreneur that I am today. And if you read chapter 2, you know that one of the key things you have to be a successful entrepreneur is confidence. Unfortunately, the book doesn't break it down and tell you how to get it. So this is what I'm doing here, helping you understand where confidence comes from. Questions so far? Everybody with me? Okay, I have to look around the screen. This is so much easier when I'm in the classroom and I can see faces and body language better. Okay. Now, this is a really big deal. And like I said, what your goal in life should be is to constantly be doing things that help to make your circle bigger, not better, bigger, constantly. If you know anything about some of the most successful entrepreneurs, Richard Branson, Bezos, all the ones that come to mind when you think of entrepreneurs, you'll find they're avid readers. And now this tells you why. This is because they understand that the more information that they expose themselves to, that the more information goes inside their circle, the bigger their circle gets, the better that they can make decisions. It gets me to one of my favorite quotes, and that's by Mark Twain. And it says, "The man who does not read has no advantage over the man who cannot read." And what he's saying there is, if you have the ability to read, but you don't do it to increase your level of knowledge, then you have no advantage over the person who cannot read to expand their knowledge. It means you're not using the cards you've been dealt to live up to your potential. That's what it means. So if you want to be successful, you need to constantly be exposing yourselves to things that will expand your circle. I've got something in the chat. Let me make sure I didn't need to get that. Okay, good. So if we think about this and expanding out the circle, let's go back to Coach Saban. One of the things that he does from a coaching standpoint, and one of the things he helps his players do, is to constantly increase this circle. They do this every week by watching film, don't they? Watch film every week, and what they're doing is making that circle bigger. And they're putting knowledge about the other team inside their circle so they can make better decisions when they're playing, so that they can make better decisions in their game plan. Like I said, what he's doing is not rocket science. These are just things that he understands really well. So let's take this a step further. Let's go over here. And let's talk about two concepts that you need to know that apply in life and in business. The first one that you need to know is risk. The second one is uncertainty. They're two different things. Your goal is always going to be your goal is to mitigate risk in your life and in your business. Let's mitigate risk and to minimize uncertainty. And we're going to talk about how to do that. Y'all, I told you I'm so bad on this board. Y'all just go with me. Y'all know what that word is, right? Okay. Okay. Risk, we know, and risk can be measured. Uncertainty are things we do not know, and they cannot be measured. Very, very important distinction. So I'm going to take this over here just a little bit further. Now let's think about this again. Everything inside the circle is everything we know. With this being the case, where does risk reside? Inside or outside the circle? Somebody talk.
Risk would be inside.
Inside, because you know it. Very good. Uncertainty, we do not know. Where does that reside?
Outside the circle.
Outside. Yes. So I'm going to give you an example to help you understand the difference between risk and uncertainty. I hope that probably most of you were not around in 2011 when the tornado came through Tuscaloosa, but I'm sure that most of you have heard about it. It was catastrophic. I know we got a handful of people who are in here from Tuscaloosa. It was terrible. Now, when that happened, I still owned Velocity Pro Cycle, the bicycle shop. And I can remember that day like it was yesterday. I remember being at home and watching James Spann on the news and watching the webcam and watching that tornado coming towards our city. And standing there thinking about what it meant. And one of the things that was going through my mind was like, is that going to level my business? Oh my gosh, there's nothing I can do about it. But if it did, I knew the risk associated with losing my business. The risk associated with it was in losing my inventory. Now, I had a computer program that kept up with all of my inventory and the value of my inventory. So I knew how much I would lose if I lost it all. So I could measure that risk. I also knew on average what sales are for my business. So if my business was completely decimated and I lost my future sales, I had a really good idea of how much money I would be losing. I could measure that. I knew how much income I would be losing if I no longer had a store. So that helped you understand I knew the risk associated with losing my whole store. This is why insurance companies exist. Insurance companies help us mitigate the risk that we can measure. So I buy an insurance policy, I measure my risk, I mitigate it by getting insurance. Making sense? Good. However, the uncertainty is if I will ever lose my business or if a tornado is going to come through. I have no idea when a tornado is going to come through and completely destroy my business. Could it happen? Sure. But do I have any idea how or when or if? No. That's uncertainty. Do I have any idea if my business is going to burn to the ground and I'm going to lose everything? Well, it could happen, but do I have any idea if or when it will ever happen? No. That's uncertainty. So does that help you understand the difference a little bit better between risk and uncertainty? Okay, good. Let's think about this in terms of the football team. So, risk and uncertainty. Let's just pretend we're just going to make up a scenario here that Alabama just finished up the regular season and they're about to go to the playoffs. We're about to go to the playoffs and we're going to play a team we don't normally see that we've never played. Let's just say we're going to play, I don't know, we're going to play Oregon, just making up a state, okay? We're going to play Oregon. Well, because we're not familiar with that team's plays, with that team's players, there's a whole lot of uncertainty out there. A lot. We have no idea what their plays are. We have no idea what tricks their quarterback's got up his sleeve, none of that. So in order to minimize the uncertainty, football team and Nick Saban increases the size of their circle by watching film. So every week you come through, you're watching film, and what they're doing is learning the other team, putting more knowledge inside this circle so they can make better decisions. And the more that they learn and the better that they get at watching film and internalizing this info, the better decisions they can make. So, like I said, it's not rocket science, guys. We're just minimizing uncertainty, and then we're going to minimize risk by making a new game plan for every team based upon the risk that they bring to the football field. Got it? Good. Okay, so you can kind of understand how this applies in business, it applies on the football field. Here, this also helps you to understand how the other team is going to try to have some trick plays up their sleeve and some plays to pull out that they've never done in any other football game. And the reason that they want to do this is they want the other football team to have a level of uncertainty. Because if they can pull out something the other team hasn't prepared for, they're much more likely to be successful with it. Any thoughts, questions so far? You know, you guys go through this scenario all of the time in your lives, whether you realize it or not. Now, I haven't been out in a really long time, so I don't even know like how you guys meet or hook up or if y'all buy each other drinks. I don't even know how it goes. I certainly don't know how it goes in the days of COVID. Like, I've been married a real long time. But let's think about it. So this is a person who sees another person over here and they're really interested and they want to meet them. Okay? The first thing you do is you size up the situation. Do they have a significant other? Do they have a boyfriend or girlfriend? You're sizing it up. What you're doing is you're mitigating your risk. Who are their friends? You turn around and ask your friends, hey, do you know that person? What's their name? You're collecting information to put inside your circle, making your circle bigger so that you can mitigate risk to make a better decision. Y'all do this all the time. Okay, so here it is. So you gather as much information as you can, and then you're like, okay, I think that I've made it to a point that I've mitigated the risk enough that I'm going to go over and say something to this person. Or maybe you say, no, I haven't done it that much, so I'm going to send my friend over to say something to them. Or instead of saying something to them, I'm going to say something to their friend. You're all making decisions based upon the level of risk that you're comfortable with and how much information that you've been able to gather. Because you all know there's still a level of uncertainty out there. You don't know if this person's going to talk back to you or not, or be interested. So y'all do this all of the time. Got it? It's not really a foreign concept. Now you just kind of know what's happening and how it works. Everybody cool? Okay, if so, we're going to keep going. I'm going to introduce a couple of other things to you here. So inside this circle is everything that we know. And we're going to start learning about entrepreneurship and the entrepreneurial toolbox by talking about the entrepreneur on the level of the individual. And if you want to be extremely successful in life, then you're going to have to learn how to be unbelievably self-aware. Now, this pertains to a lot of areas in your life. Self-aware about the amount of knowledge that's inside your circle, the kind of knowledge that's in your circle. By being self-aware enough to know there's more knowledge outside of your circle than is inside it, always. Always. So becoming self-aware that way. And you're going to have to learn to be brutally honest with yourself. It's impossible for any one person to know everything. And the truth is, every time I'm around a know-it-all, I really get away from that person. A know-it-all throws up red flags to me every time. You ever met that person who thinks they have an answer for everything? Those people scare me because I know they don't. And the scariest part about it is they think they do. But because I know there's a whole lot of stuff outside their circle they don't know, then that tells me, hands down, they're going to be making bad decisions because they have a false sense of what their knowledge is. They're not brutally self-aware or honest with themselves. You've got to be honest with yourself. That person knows everything except what they don't know. That's a scary entrepreneur. Super scary. Did I get another chat here? My chat thing keeps hopping. Okay, got it. So those people scare me. So you got to be brutally self-aware and honest with yourself. What we'll start talking about next week is more of the ways that we look at being self-aware. Today, we just want it to be about like your knowledge, what you do and don't know, and the fact that you need to constantly be working to increase your circle. The other thing that you need to know is, let's just say here's you and here's your circle. Well, then you're surrounded by people in your life that also have a circle. And we know, based on what we said, that the information that is inside everyone's circle is different. It's very different. Now, because their information is different, does that make anyone smarter or dumber than anyone else?
No.
Good answer. No. Emphatically, no. That just means people know different information. And guys, that's a huge relief and a huge confidence builder. Because now all of a sudden, regardless of what it is you're doing, you're not expected to know everything. And if you find yourself in a situation where you don't know the answer, it's okay to say, I don't know. The only thing that's not okay is to not pursue the answer. It's really okay. Now, this is really eye-opening for a lot of people, because what this means is everybody has different knowledge. Everybody has different experiences, and no one is smarter than anyone else. With that being said, this is going to, next week, we're going to talk more about ways to be self-aware, and we're going to build more into how to form teams. And this is the basis for learning how to build the best team, how to work most effectively in that team, and for how to be respectful of what's inside other people's circle, and to be respectful of the fact that it's not the same as yours. And learning how to do all of this is what's going to make you successful in life. Any questions so far? It's a lot, I know. There's a lot going on here. But I'm telling you, once this happened and I learned this theory, I'm not exaggerating when I say, guys, and I'll come back to that in a second. Let me stop share for a minute. If I can find where's my mouse? Where's my cursor? There it is. I'm not exaggerating when I say really learning this theory and internalizing it changed my life. It really did. And I approach every decision I make, especially the important ones, with this in mind. With, well, how much do I really know and how much do I not know? And if there's something I don't know, then I've learned the tools to go find the answer or to surround myself with people who do. So these are one of the things that understand, and this is something that Coach Saban understands really well. How many of you think that he's unbelievably self-aware? Yeah. How many of you think he's brutally honest with himself about the things he's good at and the things he's not good at? Yeah, it's the key to being successful. How many of you think that he is on a daily basis? Remember, I told you discipline is what sets him apart. On a daily basis, is actively doing things to increase the size of his circle. Yeah. It's not rocket science, guys. It's discipline. It's knowing it, and it's getting up every day knowing that today's a different day. And just because I was the smartest person yesterday does not mean I'll be the smartest person today. So unless I'm on it every day, somebody could pass me. And his discipline and being able to do this every day is what sets him apart. This is why he tells his team about the process. It's about the process. It's wake up every day, learning today. It's about, don't think about next week's game. We're not preparing for it yet. And don't think about last week's game. That one's over. Let's think about this week's game. And he is super, I mean, I just can't emphatically say how super disciplined he is with doing all this. It's impressive to be that disciplined and to know that every day when you wake up, you have to do it all over again. But that's what entrepreneurship is too. Every day you're going to wake up and you're going to have to do this and go through this whole process in your head. Because every day you wake up and something's different. Who could have foreseen the pandemic coming and lasting this long, right? No one. But we have to, as business owners, wake up every day and educate ourselves, be entrepreneurial aware, the thing I mentioned last class. And we have to look around all of the time and take in as much knowledge as we can to try to increase our circle to be the most effective person we can be today. And we're going to make the best decision ever today. Now, tomorrow, we might realize that it wasn't the right decision. But in actuality, that's okay. You see, the real life is like that. We don't wake up every day and go to work and take a test and either make an A or an F. It's not the way it works. We get up and we go in and we do our best. And if it works out and we make an A on that day, then fantastic. But what if we make an F? Does that mean we failed and we got to retake the class? It does not. That's not the way life works. That just means we go home and we regroup and we make a new game plan for tomorrow. The same thing the football team does. If they go out in a football game in the first half and they're not performing well, we all who are not players and who are fans, we sit around and go, God, I wonder what they're going to do during halftime. I wonder how they're going to regroup. Isn't that what we all say? Because just because they didn't do well in the first half doesn't mean they failed. It just means they had to regroup and make a new plan. And that's the way real world works. So you guys have to learn how to be resilient, to know yourself, and to be okay with the decision you make with your best knowledge. If it's a good decision, great. But if it's not, don't beat yourself up about it. Tell yourself, hey, it was the best decision I could make based on the size of my circle that day. But today my circle's bigger, so I'm going to regroup, make a new game plan, and I'm going to make new decisions and keep going. This is the basis for resilience. I have to use this all the time. And one of the ways that I've learned how to really put this into perspective is by learning the game of tennis. Anybody play tennis in this class? Yeah. Okay, well, I decided a little over a year ago to pick up a racket for the first time in my life. Really. Okay, I couldn't have picked a harder sport to learn. I couldn't have picked a more humbling sport to learn. And I will tell you, I am one of those people that I do tend to side towards perfectionism. So if it's something I'm not good at, I just don't do it. I know nobody knows what that's like. So I've had to jump out there in front of all of my peers and suck at something. Absolutely, positively just suck. And then come home and tell myself it doesn't make me a bad person. It just means I don't have those skills yet. That's especially hard during a match. You like to get in your head, just like you said. And this helps me really to practice these skills and to stay outside of my head and to understand I'm just learning as I go. So what we're going to learn over this class and next class is, you guys see the white screen? Make sure. Yeah. Okay. Is how to be more self-aware. So with that being said, there's a lot of things that go into what you need to know about yourself. Some of the things that you need to know, oops, sorry about that. You're going to need to understand, what knowledge do you have inside there based on your experiences and how long you've been alive. You also need to be really honest with yourself and evaluate what your strengths and weaknesses are. And be really honest with yourself. You're actually going to get your first assignment next Tuesday, and it's an individual assignment where I'm going to ask you to evaluate your strengths and weaknesses. And we'll talk more about that in class on Tuesday. Some of the other things that you need to know about yourself are your personality traits. And the reading that you're going to do this weekend is about personality traits. And there's actually a link that I give you on my website where you can go take a personality test if you've never done that so that you can learn more about yourself. There are lots of aspects that really go into being self-aware. These are some of the most important things to learn. So we have our personality, and then we have our some of our attitudes and behaviors that we fall back on. We will talk a whole lot about this part of self-awareness on Tuesday, and I'll give you some more tips. What I'd really like for you all to focus on, like over the weekend, and as you read the article that you're going to have to read about personality, is really knowing yourself. Okay, so if you understand that you only have a limited amount of knowledge and that it is up to you to increase this amount of knowledge, then what does it say about you if you don't actively try to do that? You see, there are some people here who've lived the same amount of time. You're both 21 years old, and let's just say you even have the same birthday. There are some people whose circle is going to be this big, and there are some that are going to be this big. And the reason for that difference is because this person actively tried to take in more information to increase the size of their circle. Being brutally self-aware means if I'm the person who zones out and who is not trying to actively increase my circle, what does that say about me? I'm not saying it's good or bad, but you need to be self-aware and know who you are. And maybe you're just like, that's me, I'm lazy. And that's okay if you're at peace with being lazy. But just know that if you're lazy, you're not going to have the same amount of success as someone else. You're both great people. Just be self-aware. Now, what you're going to learn at this point in your life is being a grown-up is not all it's cracked up to be. Because what this theory also tells you is that most things that happen in your life are up to you, not anybody else. You've got to make it happen. We'll learn more about that on Tuesday. So this weekend, you have a reading. It is on the website, and I want you to go read about, it's the, stop that, entrepreneurial traits route. It's a traits, I hate this thing, I can't do it, lit review. You'll see that on my website under the additional readings, and you'll also see a link to a personality test that you can take. Now, I'm not going to require you to take the personality test, but if you do really want to be more self-aware, then it would be just one more piece of knowledge that you can put inside your circle and one more way to help you be self-aware. Now, the article that you're going to read this weekend, guys, I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. It is long and it's tedious. It's not one of these things that you need to pull out and that you need to start reading late at night when you're sleepy, because it's not going to be a page turner that keeps you up. So I'm just going to tell you that. But let me tell you what a lit review is and what it means. In the academic world, there are, and I'm going to stop sharing screen again. All right, in the academic world, there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of articles and research studies out there that look at different personality traits, attitudes, and behaviors of entrepreneurs versus managers. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. When you see something that says it's a lit review, that means a group of fabulous researchers whom I could hug has come together and they've read all of them and they've made a summary of all of that information inside the literature review. That's what a lit review is. So please keep that in mind as you're reading this long paper, and know that some group of people did you a huge favor by synthesizing all the information that's out there into this article. Now, when you read it, you're going to learn a lot about like the different personality traits and which ones are more prevalent in entrepreneurs, which ones are more prevalent in managers. You're going to learn about behaviors that happen with entrepreneurs through different parts of the venture phase, whether it's in the startup phase or the growth phase. You're going to learn a lot about this. And I will say this, if you would like to summarize the article and write a summary of it, you can turn that in and I will give you extra credit. You can write the summary in any format that you want to. Write it in whatever format is easiest for you to study, because this is for you to study for the test. And if you turn it in, just email it to me before February, whatever it says on the schedule. It's on the schedule. It says extra credit due. If you email it to me before Tuesday, February 2nd, I will give you extra credit for it. Okay, so I will say that. But when you're reading this, read it with the perspective of trying to see yourself. When you learn about these traits and these different behaviors, try to understand and be more self-aware and say, do I have that or do I not? Is that me or is it not? And I want you to read it to understand the difference between like how entrepreneurs behave and managers behave. But I want you to read it more because it's giving you a lot of tools and a lot of knowledge and how you can become more self-aware. So that helps to answer who asked me that question earlier. Good question on tips on how to do it. Okay. So you need to read that and be ready to talk about that on Tuesday. We'll talk more about the personality traits and the behaviors in there. We'll also talk more about strengths and weaknesses. And I'll give you your first individual assignment. And that is going to be to evaluate your personal strengths and weaknesses. And this is going to give you your first chance to really be brutally self-aware. Now, doing this is all really important because after we do this, then on Tuesday, what's going to happen is we're going to start talking about team formation. How do we form the proper entrepreneurial team? How do you form the best team to do your projects in class? And then after you're in a team, how do you best work together? Now, we put you in teams all the time, but we rarely give you the skills to figure out how to build a team or how to work inside that team. And we will talk in depth about that next Thursday. And like I said, these are skills that you're going to take with you for the rest of your life. They work on the football field, they work with your friends, or they can work in a job or starting a business.